I can't finish them all. This will just be my third one in a day. And I have 6 left. Come on, Mama. Please, 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 can I have one more? And I won't finish them. This will be the last one for the day. I promise. Then tomorrow and the rest of the day, I'm going to take one. I will sleep in your bed for the rest of these days, except the weekend. Except for Saturday, Sunday, only yesterday. Okay? Bye! Okay, so you come if you want some. If you let me, I'll brush my teeth. I'll stay up late. I'll read my reader. Please.
So in case you're wondering, that is my daughter Jasmine. So she's 7, but going 17. And most of you who are mothers of young daughters of that age in today's world understand what it is that I mean when I say that. I love Jasmine, and together with her brother Jason, who is 3 years older. And one of the reasons why I love Jasmine the way I do is because she likes to believe that she can terrorize me. And in that video, I think she thinks, in that clip, I think she thinks that she was terrorizing me. That call that I've shared with you was a call that I received from her about 2 weeks ago. I had traveled. And like any parent who sometimes travels a little too often, I was in a season when there was a lot of back-to-back travel. I had decided to get for her some chocolates so that I could try and appease and make up for the time that I had been away. She loves Kinder Joy chocolates, and the pack that she particularly loves is a pack that normally comes in a box of 12. So we had negotiated an outcome because I know my daughter very well. I know her capacity to eat chocolates. She can actually take the whole 12, the box of 12, and consume it all in one go. So we had negotiated an outcome where she would eat 1 chocolate per day. And if she didn't do that, and consumed all the 12 of them, I threatened her with a visit to the dentist, our family dentist, called Dr. Andrew, who I have to say is not one of our favorite people in the world. So we had agreed, but as you can see 2 days later, she had finished her portion for the day, and that is the reason why I got that call, and she was trying to negotiate her way. Her eyes firmly set on the goal that she had. And I think I'll just leave it to your imagination to imagine how that call ended. Now, my children bring me a lot of joy. They bring me a lot of joy and give meaning to the work that I do in my everyday life. I was born in a very humble background, and when I look at my life today and how far I have come, I feel truly blessed and very privileged. Because even when I was young, the dreams that my parents had for me, and even the dreams that I had for myself, I never visualized that I could be able to come as far as I have come. Yet, what I have often found is that even in those dreams that were articulated for me by my parents brought me up in Nakuru. My dad worked in the government as a civil servant, and my mom worked in a bank as a secretary, and they both retired early. While I was busy pursuing those dreams, I discovered that in the general pursuit of life, even while I got opportunities to be able to accelerate in the things that I thought were important then, I often found myself adrift. I was living a glorious life, a life that sometimes people who I'd gone to school with highly envied, and they often came to talk to me and ask me to try and define for them what is that success formula. I was living out the glory, but it was a toil. It was a toil and an internal struggle that was within me. It was boiling within me, and I could not be able to express it. Because outwardly, everybody celebrated the person that I was and the woman that I was, the marketplace leader that I was. They celebrated me, they applauded me. But inside, I was struggling to find the meaning. And this internal struggle landed me in a hospital bed 6-7 years ago. I was burning out. My engines were running at full gear. I needed to go through surgery, and that surgery was required to reset the equilibrium in a life that was going too fast, that was becoming a bit chaotic. And I just needed a reset. So as I lay there and I pondered about my life, it was on a cold day in Joburg, and I was a bit frightened and a bit terrified. Not because I scare easily, but because of the fact that I was feeling pretty helpless lying on that hospital bed. I had just been given a dose of anesthesia, so it was all looking very fuzzy to me. And I was just staring into the theater lights, and they were all now beginning to fade into the background of my mind. But as I lay there and I contemplated my life, I thought about my daughter, who I had just given birth to a couple of months before, 3 to be exact, who was waiting for me to breastfeed her, and I couldn't. Or her brother, who was 3 years older. He was getting ready for preschool, and he needed me at that particular time and required my attention. But I couldn't be there. So as I lay there, just before the surgery, a thought dropped into the spirit of my mind, and I asked myself, was this really the best version of me? A while ago, one of my very close girlfriends lost her dad. And I remember I attended the funeral service. It was a beautiful service, full of beautiful music. And there were lots of positive citations that were said of her dad, who had lived a life that was highly celebrated, based on what was shared at the pulpit by his family and his friends. And as I sat there and read the eulogy, a thought dropped in my mind. And I let it sink during that moment. And I began to wonder and ask myself at that particular point, what would become of me when I was gone? Because the reality that we all confront is that one day we will be gone. I am not really afraid of death. I think I've had that conversation with myself and planned for it. But as I sat there and let that moment just sink into the depths of my mind, it got me thinking, what would be left of me when I was gone? What difference, if any, would my absence make? Would people notice when I left? Or would it just be the impression that would be left in my family and friends? Would there be any impact? Would there be any legacy? Would there be stories that would be told, just like my girlfriend's dad, of a story that was well-lived? My dad has always inspired me. When I was young and I was growing up, and I'm a firstborn in a family of 5, I could see the struggle with which he took to invest in me and take me to a good school, educate me because he wanted me to have the very best in life. The visions of grandeur at that particular age consisted of me going to a good school, doing well in my studies, getting a job, preferably with the word manager in it, because then that meant that I was a substantive person in that organization, being happily married, possibly having 4 kids at that particular time. So I only have 2 now. I'll probably not achieve that. And maybe owning a home, having 2 cars, one for me, one for the hubby. That was what was considered the good life. But as I continued pursuing this, and I pursued it relentlessly, I did very well in my studies. I graduated with first-class honors. I'm a scientist by training. And even in my career, I pursued it with all the passion that I had, such that I ended up becoming a director in my early 30s in one of the fastest growing companies in Kenya, and which has now become one of the big companies in this market. But the more the achievements piled up, the less gratifying it felt. And that for me did not make sense. Yet I realized that this disease, if I may call it so, was not a disease that was unique to me. Because I could see a lot of young people who would come to me and wanted to have a conversation and ask, how can I get to the place where you have gotten? How can I accelerate my career as fast as you have? What is that magic formula that you have found? And therefore, I began to ask myself, could there be something more than this? Because I was ticking all the right boxes, but still I could not find that inner peace or that depth of meaning that I wanted to find. I began to ask myself, would it be possible for me to find a bigger purpose, a bigger reason to live? What would be the impact that I would leave in this world? Would it be possible for me to begin to write out my own eulogy while I was still alive? Now, I ask that question to many young people who come into my office who say that they want me to coach them, or who I meet out there. And I ask them, can you draw for me the map of your life? Where you have come from, your past, your present, your future, and the legacy that you want to leave when you are gone. I ask them to write their own eulogy. What would you want to be read when you leave? And typical Africans, we are very superstitious, so many people get very nervous when you ask them that. But I think that conversation forces you to be able to confront some realities and some truths about yourself. I enjoyed studying geography as a young girl. And in high school, I used to love books. I still love books. I love the smell of books. And I really struggled with having to read my material off Kindle because I love the power and the feel that you actually have when you're holding a real book in your hands. One of the books that I really loved when I was in high school was the Atlas. I don't know if you consider the Atlas a book, but I love the Atlas. And the reason why I love the Atlas is because it showed me all the different countries that were there in the world and the possibilities that existed in the different cultures, the people, and just the desire to want to travel and go and see all these places for myself. But one of the things that really amazed me about my geography class and the Atlas was the fact that the compass, the way it operated, I could never really figure it out. Now, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what geographical space, no matter what time of day, the north will always be the north. The south will always be the south. And it got me thinking, wondering, what if life was that predictable? Would it be possible for me as an individual to be able to define that true north for myself? Would it be possible for me, as Sylvia, to be able to know that magnetic north that would consistently drive me, that would consistently inspire me, keep me grounded in my high seasons and my low seasons, the light through which and by which I would say yes and no, learn how to draw the boundaries in my life, the guide by which I would operate and organize my otherwise chaotic life. There is a funny Irish proverb that I had once that says that no matter how tall your grandfather was, you have to do your own growing. And that, for me, while I laughed at it the first time I had it, it really sank deep within me because it made me realize that I needed to take personal responsibility for my own life. The words rang so true for me. And therefore, if I needed to be responsible for creating and orchestrating the best version of me. So this has been my journey, bringing meaning in the space of time that I'm currently existing, and beginning to define the legacy that will outlive me in the space of time when I will no longer be here in physical form. Losing me loosened me. It helped me to find myself. It helped me to find that which I was living for. It helped me to discover my true north. discovering my true north has actually been a journey about discovering my purpose and the reason why I have been put on this space of earth. I have now begun to live, and I'm still a work in progress, with an end in mind, very conscious of the fact that I am running a race, and that race has a finish line. I have been allocated a certain period of time, and within that time, I need to be very clear about what is the impact that I want to generate in the lives of the people who are around me, in the community, in the place where I have been asked to serve in the marketplace, in the relationships that are important to me. As part of this process, I did a time audit of my life. And it was interesting and very surprising for me to find that the things that I was allocating my time to, the items that I was giving high attention, were not necessarily the things that were important in shaping my destiny and helping me write that geology that I wanted to be known for. It became very clear to me, and this is something that I would like you to remember, that where purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. My greatest assets have been my failures. I have learned to learn from my mistakes. My mistakes have shaped me. They have shown me the paths on which I should tread and the ones which will bring me pain. I had a friend of mine the other day who said that wise people normally learn from the mistakes of others, but fools normally wait to make their own. I therefore chose to learn from my own mistakes, plus the mistakes that I could see others making. So with time, I have learned to forgive myself. I have learned to soar. With time, I have learned to celebrate myself. The things that are uniquely me. There are passions that I have where even still at my young age, and I like to call myself young, though many people like to remind me that I'm getting to 4th floor next year. Those passions are still my passions. They make me uniquely me. I love dancing. I love DJing. That's me. And I celebrate that, and I'm no longer apologetic about it. With time, I have learned to make opportunity for the things that are important. I have learned to make magic in the relationships that I have, especially the relationships of my children and the relationships of the people that are closest to me, who are not more than 3, by the way. So you see, Jasmine, my daughter, in that earlier clip that I played, had actually identified her purpose in the conversation that she was having with me. She knew the goal that she wanted to achieve, and she applied all her little smarts in making sure that she was able to get it. She was negotiating, and she was bargaining with me so that she could ensure that she was able to achieve the same. Now, I know that probably there may be some of us who are having that challenge. Then again, maybe you're all the smart ones, and I'm the only one who had to go through that challenge. But in going through that journey, which has taken me a couple of years, and which is a journey that I'm still on, I have learned a couple of things. Number one, that purpose gives you direction. That purpose helps you to define your values and the things that are important to you. That in the journey of discovering purpose, you learn how to say yes to a bigger vision of yourself. You learn how to define your character, which leads to your reputation. And in that process, you ultimately end up writing your own eulogy. Ladies and gentlemen, in this moment in time, I believe we all have the opportunity to be able to define the way we want to be defined when we are no longer there to define ourselves. Let us not waste it. Thank you.